next presentation is from Gunther from Axiros, and also the sponsors of our Broadband Forum member meeting this week. So thank you. And the sponsor of last night's wonderful dinner. Yeah, so please take it away.
Yes, thanks, Jason. Hope you had a good evening yesterday. Bavarian one. Meanwhile, we are smart enough to go home early, I think. Some of us are. Some of us have to. They did. Okay, you have to be forced. All right. Yes, where do I start? Two announcements I think I should make. You see here, very gray, but I have this CEO title. You don't know. We didn't market it much. It is just the fact that life goes on, and we all not get younger. And the doctor said no to Kurt Peterhans, who did this for close to 15 years. And yeah, I want to really thanks Kurt. He can't be here, but he did this job, and now I see how strenuous this is. So I think we won't market it even because I think it's temporary. I'm a tech head. I founded this company, long ago, 2002. And I had a vision when I founded it, and you will see that this presentation is about that vision. I should also say here, since we are here in Europe, a word about Axiros, because here just this well-known huge companies present typically. We are a small shop. We are not so well-known, I guess, outside of our domain. So we are still self-owned, German-owned, because I'm German. And so no investor, 150 people, 152. Now I know the number meanwhile on the payroll, development. So global presence, but development since 2022, since Cruise special operation taking place here in the middle of Europe. We are now fully European software from Portugal to Eastern Europe present. I think it's meanwhile close to 10 countries in Europe. So the bigger countries we are, except France and also Belgium, because there are other super opportunities for good developers, as we all know, right? That's Axiros. That's what we are. We are known for ACS software, the auto configuration server, right? Which brought us over the last 2 decades as conceptually. And I want to talk about the future of this. I think ACS as such is obsolete. I said it already in the on Monday in the intro speech. And what will come next? And this topic here requires more than a CPE management product or something. It requires something different. So how do we get to this? Let us look at what we have and how we got here. And it all started, and sorry for the logo, but as a sponsor, I'm allowed to do that, I think. Well, the actual reason is my Photoshop skills are not very good, so I took this from our presentations. But this, what I'm going to show here, applies for any ACS. Doesn't matter from which vendor. So this was the pain 2006 solved by TR69, that we had one standardized way to send commands to CPEs, and these commands did change the configurative state of these devices, plus was able to change the whole firmware in a standardized way. And so the operators of this world could do it in sort of the same way with every CPE outside fulfilling the standard. This was an absolute need. Made it into any tender, and so all the vendors supported the standard, and it was one of the biggest successes, I think, in the last century on a standardization base, right? So provisioning intent back then from the BSS, new customer there, could be sent to the ACS, and the ACS transcending the intent, breaking it down, offered normalized ways to send the intent, and then specialized ways regarding data models and stuff to implement the intent. So a very synchronous way of talking to the thing. And what's interesting is I was last week in the TM forum. They are still busy on standardizing actually this arrow, the part which the ACS takes here. So in the whole order management process, it's a long journey to get the northbound side to get standards in. I think here in the BBF we tried it also very early. Was not a big success, but meanwhile here we are somewhat exchangeable, right, in the sense of what could you expect on the intent API, what the ACS should do. So not only provisioned, clearly after the provisioning was the bootstrapping was in place. Customer support was in the ball game. That was pretty much instant. So in the life cycle, during the life cycle, customer support also had change intent and wanted to talk to the CPE during a support session. It's clear. That followed naturally. Evolved then also the possibilities which the ACS could do, like you could even then, I don't know, set parameters outside of the service offerings of the actual telco, but the user needed it, so the supporter did it. But most of the time, since the supporter did not know much about the situation, he did this or this even, right? And then, well, it helps a lot in our domain, right, to do this. Reset the state basically to the beginning and start over. So to solve these question marks, you gave basically the supporter more consolidated information. You started to really collect the state information, and the decade of base monitoring started. TR69 definitely not the most perfect protocol to collect massive field information, but well, vendors found ways to do this somewhat performant. And over really device fields in the double-digit million range, it's possible, but we all know here the compute power spent alone for SSL and stuff like that. But the investment was worth it because the supporters now had a clue of what they are doing. They got their own basically specialized databases about what was going on yesterday, right, when this customer called. The information was pretty much pushed into these databases, a little bit consolidated, and then presented in UIs for the supporter. This is something which was also then expected from an ACS out of the box as one, the big CPE management system. Went on, field monitoring became more and more sophisticated. Vendors were pushed, CPE vendors were pushed by the telcos to reveal far more state information in the data models. Configuration was not happening, so reconfiguration, access to the config parts, the write parts, was still not happening much, but on the reading side, it became more and more sophisticated. Occurrence of streaming interfaces, so basically subscriptions or Kafka, right? Access to the data in streaming ways was becoming the norm because of the sheer volume, and also the fact that many parties were interested in the same data. So this push model was doomed. And we see now, that's the present, expert systems, subscribing to those Kafka hubs, and doing their job in turning the data into information, which can be then domain-specific information and skill-based information to make the CSPs smarter to allow them to do more specialized and correct actions and faster actions to fix the problems in the field, right? Smarten them up. Also, the information was sent back to the BSS into BI systems, clearly to investigate what's going on in the customer base. I mean, we all know that a router nowadays has thousands and thousands of valuable information. I'm not saying this information is able to be processed because of privacy. This is especially here in where we are in Europe, absolute critical to do this legally compliant. But still, on the uplink side, for example, a lot of information is ingested into the BSS, so turned into very high-level information. Right, and these investments became really critical, and so USP had a lot of success, not only because of the always-on and the reachability, which made others really create comparable standards like WebPA to be able to solve the reachability problem into the homes on non-routers. But I think the cost effectivity of USP also is maybe even more precious than connectivity, always on connectivity. Because yeah, it's actually the same, right? SSL sessions don't need to be built up, but in the essence, it's still the same. It's just a little bit cheaper to do. It's still base monitoring going on. Basically, pretty much the attempt to statically look into the field in various intervals and collect data, and then try to eat it and get more and more information out of it, but that has limits. I'm getting to that. So the subscriptions basically replaced here in the base monitoring the connection request based get runs of the state. Right. Yes, so USP making base monitoring more cost effective. Yeah, so this is where we are. This is actually, you saw that before from ABM already. That's a typical support front end containing all the elements I mentioned. So history from the base monitoring here, this is actually commands being sent, the speed test results, but it applies to the, I don't know, the uplink situation and all of that. History is present, is turned into high-level information, and this is my point of view around the state where we are right now in the industry. This is what you expect from a central platform. You can get those as products, and it has brought us a long way, especially now with ML and AI. The information can be by us or by others, even turned into, can be recognized, the data can be recognized, and the information can be, the evolution of the data can be even predicted, right? So we can, meanwhile, produce APIs which not just give you the present or the past, but also a little bit the future with somewhat high accuracy. And I would say it's valid to say this is state of the art right now, and that's the presence. And I think we did a wonderful job here all together the last 2 decades. And I think, on a very high level, the uplink is under control. And no matter the physics from fiber, cable, mobile, the uplink is not anymore the problem. But here, the home network is getting out of control, in my point of view. So with the complexities exploding, I'm as a father of three. I must say, I have trouble meanwhile to understand what's going on. I think we will reach not just these 50 devices, but it will be 100 devices when you count really all the IoT stuff, which we are talking about here and which we did talk a lot about here. The home networks are not under control, right? To put it mildly. So the home network. Added this to the picture. Dozens, that's valid to say, of IP devices, mostly Wi-Fi. So very, very difficult medium. And where are we with this approach to understand it, to dig the data? I think we do have large operators here who try to understand Wi-Fi by gathering the information, the Wi-Fi information, the situation of the home networks of millions, double-digit millions of users. Like every 15 minutes, pull a snapshot. Put it to Kafka and try to analyze it using AI. I think the home network needs more than base monitoring. And it needs also clearly more on the router itself, and we work on that. I get into that. And it needs more in the understanding of the subscribers, because I think Wi-Fi should not be the concern of the CSP, because this is far too much volatile and changing information. Our customers still want us to give their CSP all the information about Wi-Fi, all this ever-changing environment, and that's for millions of users. I think if you get into this area of feeling responsible for the whole user experience, then it can't end even at Wi-Fi. It's with this explosion of devices, and it should be handled by the user himself. It should be handleable by the user himself, who is not a tech expert. So regarding the router, we are on a super good track here. We smarten up the router. We talked a lot about it. I think I don't even need to go very deep here, and I won't. You all know what I'm talking about. The router does not need to have in his monolithic firmware the possibility to handle anything which can occur in the home network, and any requirement, any wish of the subscriber. We can equip him during the life cycle with that smartness without having to do a complete firmware run. And we work hard on making this standardized and secure, so that these various applications don't tap on each other's foot. And I'm very, very happy to see that. Lifecycle management, as said, I won't go into that much. It is, in my point of view, not the silver bullet which solves all problems regarding making the user experience, making a home portal really real. Apps do have their restrictions, and we should not overlook also that the server is also now, with this high-speed uplinks and this low latency, should be considered as well as an important element in this whole story, especially in the integration story, but also in to carry apps right away. I mean, we've seen with, for example, proprietary attempts of vendors like Bloom, that what's possible to do on the server, right? On the stuff which was previously just thought it must be done on the CPE. We know also what it costs. but latency is not a problem anymore. And maybe one can do it even smarter, right? And so when something makes sense to be done, then there are always proprietary attempts. I've meanwhile 30 years in the industry, so I've seen a lot of them. When something makes sense to be done, then proprietary attempts are 3-4 years earlier than us following them with the standard, but typically the standard overtakes them. And I'm talking about how can we be even better here? So server-sided apps, I don't get into all the points, won't have the time for that, but the statement is both, in my point of view, are required. So server-backed apps, so really more than just chipping down the CPE-sided applications, but really providing value. And on such, in the end, home portals, doing real calculations, doing real data to information runs, and providing APIs. I'm getting into that in a second. So must be in Symfony, and the combination point is that home portal. When I say home portal, I mean basically it can be a mobile app consuming data from a central streaming server, but can be even a stream of HTML, right, into a browser. That doesn't matter. The point is, where is the information coming from? Where is the mobile phone or the laptop connecting to? Is it to the CPE, or is it to a central point? So, and that's the answer regarding how we smarten up the end user, right? The subscriber. The CPE is, we have an answer, we work on that, but home portal is the way to smarten up the end user so that they can help themselves. And now I'm getting back to what I said in the beginning. Somebody gets
God, make it stop.
Yeah. Anyway, so these were the attempts from 20 years ago, over 25 years ago, to do that as one company, you know, and a small company. And they are very interesting. I mean, you see that we have no taste or something, but it was also the web standards were not there. But there are interesting ones on it. For example, this one here. This was now 20 years ago, right, when the soccer championship was there. And home portal for me is the combination, the tight coupling of the possibilities of a central server, of a central compute cluster, and the local information of the sensors, the interrupt registers, all of that, making it into the state tree, combining them together. So in that example here, that combination resulted in us presenting that portal to the journalists in the stadiums here in the soccer championship, and according to what they paid, they had their pictures, and these are many gigabytes of pictures in a soccer game. When you click all the time, they have them earlier in the agency so that they can publish it, I don't know, 5 seconds earlier than the other agency. And we can, when you combine a centralized user profile with the local traffic shaping, firewalling, redirection possibilities, then you can create such solutions. And this is actually how the company started. And alone basically the plain provisioning that the router is ready, that is now what we are known for. So basically that was the ACS part, but it's actually that much of the story. The story is far bigger when you combine the central and the local instance. And yeah, we never made it, and it's clear when you look at these pictures that we did not make it into production with any of these except this one here, the most complex one for Deutsche Telekom back then. But the others were never making it. This one I wanted to quickly highlight, that was basically how we thought back then. What's the job of the local portal? Actually, the main job of the local portal would be, or this one here, is please connect this cable into this box. So offline handling. Offline handling until it's online, and then hand over to the central portal where then all the stuff, the magic happens in conjunction with the possibilities on the device. Yeah. So what you see from that picture is one company cannot do such a thing. It's end to end. It's from the router software to the presentation for end users. That's not possible, not for us, but not even for bigger vendors. What I think is we need end-to-end collaboration, and the collaboration must be based on standards. And we love standards, right? So, and standards means APIs. And that means that the ACS must be turned into a full-blown API platform, and to provide now this last missing functionality. This one is huge, to provide the user, the subscriber, with the information in the way that he understands it, typically generated by a language model and visualized in the correct way, so that he can trigger himself the next intent to change the situation to the better. So that this cycle is closed, a lot is needed, a lot of collaboration. Those two could be done pretty much in one attempt, but here we need a lot. And to talk about what this API platform must look like, I think we should really look into that, like we did back then 20 years ago, to try to standardize this. We should now talk about what does the API platform actually comprise. I show you a little demo. This API platform is much more than where, for example, TM Forum is, which standardizes REST APIs still mainly, and static subscriptions. So I hope this works. This works now. It was a little bit of a nightmare. So I took just the next best portal toolkit, basically symbolizing that it cannot be done by us. It cannot be our look and feel or whatnot, but it should be possible to do stuff like this. So on this Raspberry here, I took our USP agent. It's just a standard USP agent. And
if everybody can see him rotating the device right now.
Yeah, sorry. I did not manage to get this via the Wi-Fi because I'm on the uplink via my laptop. So I have this cable here. Oh yeah, and the power. So the cool thing of this demo is that you should see when it's not moving anymore, then no data is flowing, at least not aggressively. It's not aggressively flowing. How is it flowing? Is it subscriptions or is it pulled? I say in such a situation, so if you look at it, the user is currently looking at this widget. And when I pick it up again, then in the next, so it starts again the aggressive data flowing. The data flows now very aggressively because somebody is looking at it. But when nobody's looking at it and he clicks on another widget, then there's no data flowing at all. So we have to be, in my point of view, to do a home portal, you have to be very conservative regarding when data flows. So the age-old question, if the tree is existing when I don't look at it, is here very crucial. Because for me, it's not important. The answer is not important, I see it when I look, when I observe it. And in our business, we have to be very careful of that intent handling. So there are many, many situations on a home portal where the intent is the key or the trigger to even produce the data. On-demand streaming. A widget popping up, a JavaScript event that a certain widget is in the visual range, and that is, they have events for that. When he scrolls this into his viewport, the aggregation must start. And in my point of view, for those use cases, subscriptions are not the answer. So for these use cases, you have better load control on your distributed system. And you have to understand that this intent, this intent that somebody was looking at a widget has to be paused, from here, from the JavaScript event through the distributed system, a Kubernetes-based multi-services systems to the USP controller. And how to do that securely, that a builder of an application who, like a JavaScript guy or a UI guy, cannot mess up the system. You have to have some standards in place. You cannot give him full access to hit the USP controller, right? And this is what I'm talking about when I mean standards. To be able to pass this intent through the distributed system to the USP controller and allow applications to be built which can rely on certain possibilities of the API platform. I would not go that deep, but we all heard how important it was, that decision of Vodafone, for example, to have this this workflow engine, and how much relief they have from that. I would go further. I would not dictate that workflow engine, but the possibilities of such a workflow engine, my point of view, should be part of a standard. And I would say complementary to something like that would be the possibility to pass that intent, that intent that a user is now interested in the stream of the current Wi-Fi repeater RSSI when he installs a Wi-Fi repeater, or the stream of history data when he hits the when I'm interested in what my daughter was doing last week, I will access a history database, which must be very, very strictly mine. So I would say the data, I mean, it cannot be passed into Asia or something for privacy reasons, because this data which we would collect on such an API platform is very privacy relevant. So in my point of view, that should be standardized, should be part of the API platform, that a history database must be present, it must be local, and it must be only anonymized information making it out of it, because this is user-owned data. So that far I would go. Regarding the polling, I wanted to say one last thing here, because of you operators are there. Yes, I think polling for such very highly dynamically established streams, at a certain point you poll always, right? And if it's the interrupt register on the device, but in the demo here, polling is the better way than establishing a temporary subscription, my point of view, because of this adaptive rate thingy, so that I was able to give from the widget as an app developer a declarative command to the controller. Hey, I want that now. I want polling happening every few seconds, except when there's a rate change and except when the CPU is, so combine a few of these observables. Those possibilities should be there. And with polling, you have a better control of the load which you induce on the distributed system, because you just, you can take that stream of information as well in the decision when to do the next state poll. The best would be, though, to really push that intent, be able to push it down to the CPE even. So that would be worth even a thought, to not have this ending at the controller, but be able to send such intent. Hey, I want that state parameter in that rate, but combine it with these other parameters, window it, throttle it, debounce it. There are there are possibilities invented mainly on the front end side. You know, when you take your Uber to the airport, look at this front end, how real time it is and how nicely adapts to the uplink situation. And they did a lot of work on making such intent declarative, goes into observability. So I would dream of a data model, an observable data model where you can establish processing pipelines on it. But that's all something which, in my point of view, needs to be started. Yeah, I wanted to say this works with polling. This has this nice advantage that it works with TR69 as well. When you don't let go the session, you can do this get, and never let go as well. But with disclaimers, clearly. So not every CPE is would like it when you never let go. So would be, yeah, the star is important. Should be red, this star. But yeah, polling does have advantages. So this is end of my talk. I wanted to really implant this into your heads that we can learn a lot, I think, on the front-end community, how they, like, how is an Uber app working, how is your Amazon portal working and stuff like that. So would be, I guess, more other domains would be needed for home portal, so knowledge of other domains. But I think we should be the one doing it. I said I was in TM Forum last week. There's not much going on regarding this one. I mean, they still standardize base monitoring subscriptions, right? And that's by far not enough to get to where we want to be with this. And yeah, so that's my appeal here.
I look forward to these contributions.
Yes, let me alone.
So we do have a time for a couple questions while we get Honda ready. Go ahead. Yep.
Hi, Gunther. Thanks. Maurizio Locke again with FiberCop Italy. I saw in your overall picture a nice block named Axiros AI models. So maybe can you comment on how do you see or does Axiros see these ecosystems more specifically? Do you develop your own models or do you foresee a strategy based more on, let me say, partnership with AI developers and maybe putting your own secret sauce based on, you know, featureizations and hyperparameters of the models?
So yeah, our role in AI.
It's Van Gogh role, okay.
I tell you. So we cannot do it via base monitoring. Base monitoring is currently flooding the AI data lakes. The the data lakes are full of boring, dull data. And this is what we have to, this is our role in this picture. Yes, we build our own pattern recognition engines. We have to, especially in the cable business, they are very well standardized. So yeah, we do our own ML. We still, I mean, everybody plays a little bit around with LLMs to present the information, but this is, as I said, one company should not do it alone. But we are the ones, since we are the first instance, which this API platform, right, which semantically interprets the data, the first instance which has a semantic knowledge of what the data means from the field, we should be the ones who do this smart, to provide this smarter data, this high variety, because AI needs that. ML, machine learning, need not much data, but very varying data. That's our job here.
Just another one, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it's clear also from previous presentations that there is an exploitation path that is following the app ecosystem of smartphones, right? So maybe naively, I was making the parallel of mainstream OSs there, Android and iOS, and that do you see this again flying over a couple of mainstream OS platforms, DK and Purple? Again, I'm not an expert on these dynamics, but I think that industrially that a sort of North Star in terms also of partnerships. And maybe Jose is happy.
Yeah, I would love to.
What do you think? What is, again, Axiros' vision for a sort of longer term set of goals and evolutions?
Yeah, I said what Purple does is key in order to smarten up the device, and they have a ton of knowledge also regarding how to make the apps not overlap each other and make it all secure. So for the lifecycle management is critical. So I'm very much a fan of what Purple does. Makes our customers also more secure regarding their vendor choices, and nothing bad to say here. This big
All right.
Purple fan.
Thank you very much, Gunther.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. All right.